Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this live product demo. Today we've got a couple of experts on the call today who'll be taking you through the SD Worx Workforce Management Cloud solution, which is my Protime. A few housekeeping things to raise before we get going. Firstly, there is a chat function which you'll see on your screen. You can ask questions throughout the demo at any time. There will be a designated time for Q&As at the end, but if we see these questions coming through, we can always address them as and when the time is right. There'll also be 3 polls throughout this demo. So again, you'll see these on screen with a multi-answer option. You can select whichever one you want, and then we'll be commenting on those as the demo progresses. So please do give your thoughts and opinions on those. And there will be a recording sent straight after this finishes. So you'll receive an email with a link to the recording, which you can watch at any time at your leisure. So just a brief introduction to who is on the call today. So firstly, you've got myself, Craig McGee. I work in the marketing department at SD Worx. So I'll be moderating this session today. And we also have, as I said before, the experts on today's call. So we'll start with Ellen. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Ellen.
Yeah, my name is Ellen Baarslag. I'm working for the Protime workforce management solution and been working there for almost 20 years now, leading companies to implement and roll out our workforce management solution.
Thanks, Ellen. And we've also got Craig Townsend. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, Craig.
Yeah, the second Craig on the call today. So my name's Craig Townsend. Afternoon, everyone. So I work at SD Worx. I've been here for 17 years. I work in our pre-sales area of the business. So I work very closely with Ellen, and we'll both be taking you through kind of today's demonstration and the benefits of it.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. So what are we going to cover today? So firstly, we're going to talk you through the benefits of an integrated payroll and workforce management solution and how that can help your organization. We'll then give another quick introduction to the solution itself, what it covers and what it offers. And then we'll dive straight into the demonstration itself, and Ellen will take you through the tool itself, show you some live screenshots and how it can help on a day-to-day basis your organization from an employee's point of view, but also from a manager's perspective as well. And then, as I said before, there will be some time for a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, either save them for the end or feel free to drop them in the chat and we can address them, as I said, when the time is right. So at this stage, I think it's a good time to have our first poll before getting into the content of the day. So you should see the first question on screen in a second, which is, do you currently have a workforce management solution in place that's integrated with payroll? So we'll give you about 30 seconds to think about that and input your answer. Okay, so I'll give you 10 more seconds or so just to get the last few votes in. Okay, thank you very much, guys. I'll just close that and share the results. So as you can see, we've got 75% of attendees so far said yes, they have got an integrated workforce management solution with payroll, and 25% no. So in terms of your reaction to that, Craig, are you surprised by that, or is it normally the case when you ask these sorts of questions from your experience?
No, I mean, I think it's positive that 75% see the benefits of integration. I mean, as we'll discuss kind of as we move through the slides, there are different layers in which you can integrate. Obviously, one of them is data, but there is the experience as well. So we'll talk in a little bit of that. And the 25%, you know, it's not uncommon that we see that kind of that level where it's actually dealt with separately and it causes a lot of inefficiency. So yeah, unsurprising, but it's good to see it validated.
Okay, good stuff. So that leads us on nicely then to the benefits of integrating workforce management and payroll. So that was seamless as always.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. So yeah, I mean, as I said, we're going to cover the kind of two topics, and we've broken them down into kind of 5 sections. The first one, you know, the remote access 24/7. It's sort of a given now that people expect this and employees expect this, and particularly given the way the workforce is now distributed, you know, post COVID and things with a lot of home working, you expect to have access to tools to allow you to, one, you know, work out your working pattern and your working schedule, but also to check your financial aspects of work as well, in terms of pay slips and P6s and things like that. So actually integration is, on the top point, more about the experience, you know, having something that has single sign-on. You don't need separate usernames and passwords to check different things. And as I say, you know, if you're at home and actually trying to sort out childcare issues with the wife, or you're trying to book a holiday, it's really important you have the tools to be able to access, you know, those future schedules. Save time, increase efficiency, and reducing errors. Yeah, so I mean, this is back to, I guess, the data and the processes. You know, it's one of the key benefits of integration. What we see a lot with organizations who don't have that integration is a lot of duplication of effort, a lot of manual work, which then obviously can lead to errors, you know, just because it's so manual that you're transferring things from one to the other. Or actually even, you know, actual spreadsheets if you don't have a WFM system. So managers inputting time on spreadsheets and then sending it across to a central function to processing payroll. It can also cause a lot of frustration for employees as well if their time's not being tracked correctly. If the manager's made mistakes, it can lead to multiple issues further down the line. Improving workforce planning and strategy delivery, yeah, so absolutely key, I guess, and again, particularly in these times during COVID and when everything is so valuable in terms of making sure that the workforce is planned efficiently and accurately, and obviously to the benefit of the employee from a work-life balance perspective. So having, again, tools to allow you to do that is much safer, and actually gives a lot of intelligence and a lot of help to the management in terms of how that workforce is distributed. Employee engagement, I mean, it's linked to what I was talking about before, but absolutely, you know, having those online tools will increase engagement. So having visibility of leave, having visibility of working schedules and patterns, having visibility of payments, and being able to reconcile them between the two systems is vitally important to support engagement. And you know, it's obviously a hot topic coming out of the COVID world, and we need to make sure that these employees are properly supported and feel properly engaged with, one, our organisation, and two, the tools that our organisation uses to distribute their work. And improve scalability, yeah. So this is linked to, you know, the fact that it is, you know, a modern system, it's online, and scalability, you know, whether that's growth or whether that's, you know, in reductions, having a tool rather than manual processes and manual work obviously just allows you to improve that future proofing of the solution.
Great stuff, and I think that will be very recognizable to the people who voted yes for the first question in the poll. I think they'll recognize a lot of those benefits. That's really interesting.
I mean,
I think that does.
Sorry to cut across you
That's all
there,
right, go
Craig.
ahead.
It's interesting, you know, because integration, people often just see the data flow and kind of the experience is secondary. So it would be interesting for those 75% to kind of question how well integrated it is, and whether it's passing time hours across or whether it's more sophisticated than that, because there's definitely more we can do to increase that experience.
Yeah, and I guess that will differ per customer and per organization.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Craig. And again, leading on nicely from that then is what solutions can Protime offer organizations then?
Yeah, so well, from a Protime solution within the SD Worx family, we can provide actually different modules, modular, so customers can choose what the solution is they need on their to fit their requirements. So the first pillar is very much based on anything that has to do with time. So you have your time and attendance and your absence management, but it could also be what have I done with my time, so the cost center allocation. But we can also add functionalities such as access control. So that's physically access to a certain area of the company, or doors, or even gates. but also a visitor's registration. So if you would combine the two, you have the possibility to have lists during emergencies, for example, to understand who is in the building, who should be looking for, who should be at the point where we get together if in case of an emergency. The one that Greg already touched on is planning. So not just the time and attendance and the hours worked, but also planning and forecasting and looking at how many people do I need to do certain work, which could be team planning or job planning. And it could be from very simple planning until quite sophisticated auto scheduling. Those are all modules that you can add to the time solution as we have it. And of course, SD Worx can deliver the services as well to support the customers with anything that is aligned with the solutions that we offer. And for today, we're going to focus on that time part, and especially on the self-service part, looking at it from an employee angle and a management angle.
Okay, perfect. So before we actually go into the details of the tool and go through that demonstration, we've just got time for a second poll. And this one you should see in a second. Yes, so the question is, what is the biggest challenge your organization currently faces when it comes to workforce management? And the options are managing a remote/hybrid workforce, operational efficiency, employee engagement, or team planning. So if you could place your votes now, please. I'll give you around 20 seconds. Okay, last few seconds, guys. Okay, great stuff. So let's have a look at the results. So kind of split 3 different ways here for managing a remote/hybrid workforce, employee engagement, and team planning. So for you guys, Craig and Ellen, is there any surprises there for you, or did you expect different answers, or what's your immediate reaction to that?
It's nicely divided, I guess, Craig. So I think it's not a surprise to see that the focus seems to be more on the employee and employee engagement with team planning and even managing a remote workforce than maybe where it used to be operational efficiency. But the focus today, I think also due to COVID and the war of talent, it's much more on the employee than on the operational part.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if this would have been done pre-COVID, I'm pretty sure operational efficiency would have been quite high on the list of priorities from workforce management solution. It's actually quite nice and refreshing, and it speaks lots to what we're seeing in the market as well, that actually, you know, this remote hybrid workforce and employee engagement are coming through to the fore. You know, as Ellen rightly says, the war on talent is fierce out there. So making sure that your employees are happy and settled in their job and obviously getting that satisfaction is highly important. And team planning has made a huge, has a huge emphasis now on that remote hybrid workforce. You know, what we're seeing is workforce management traditionally was seen as kind of, you know, 0 hours contracts or flexible working and things like that. We're seeing it much more in the office space as well now, with people having more flexible working patterns than the usual 9 to 5. So being able to have a tool that offers that flexibility is really key now going forward too.
Yeah, and kind of in line, I guess, with the findings of SD Worx's future of work research that was done last year. A lot of the findings are very similar, so interesting to see how that aligns with the research done recently.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So I think it's now time to move on to the actual demonstration itself. So if I hand the reins over to your good self, Ellen, I'll just make you a presenter very quickly.
Thank you very much. Let me see if that will work.
Yes, I think we're in.
Good, that's nice to see. So as mentioned, we have different modules within the solution, and today we're going to focus on the point of view for an employee and a manager. But with everything I show, please keep in mind it's a demo database, so I made some assumptions, but you can really choose your own configuration. And also behind it, of course, there are calculation rules that apply and that make certain calculation happen automatically. And I set up in my demo days a certain kind of calculation, but it is very configurable and you can really choose your solution to make it exactly meeting your requirements within the company. So first of all, this is the landing page, the me page, where I come in if I hit the TNA functionality. This is fully a SaaS solution. As Greg mentioned, people expect 24/7 access to their data. So this is not only running on your desktop version. I don't have to wait until Monday before I can check my balances. It will also be usable on a tablet or on a mobile phone, and it will automatically adapt to your screen size. So if at a certain time the screen is very small, you will automatically change the appearance of the solution so that it will still be readable and user-friendly. So on this me page, the first things that I see from an employee perspective are the requests that I've done and the status of those requests. So if it's a granted request, it's the green tick box. If it's a refused request, it's a red X. And if I look to all the requests that I've ever done from an employee perspective, I even see some that are awaiting approval. So with a question mark, so it's completely clear what's the status of my request, what happened to it, who's the person who should have been approving this request. And that's all based on authorization, of course, but it's also never lost. So if there is something that has been requested by an employee, you can always see the full history of that and the status of that request. And the other thing you see here on my right-hand side are two balances. I activated two. There is a holiday balance in days, 9 days. There's a time off in lieu in hours, 9 hours. If there's only one applicable for this employee, only one will be shown as well. And also if there are multiple one, automatically more squares will appear based on authorization of that particular employee or group of employees. So that should take away a lot of questions about things that they're not able to see or to use, but still in the screen. And we make sure that it will fit the requirements. If you hover over it, you see it turns blue, so that means that I can see details. And if I click on that, it's just a detailed overview of that balance. So what that does is just to show what happened to it exactly. I started with 25 days for the new balance year, but I carry over 2 days of last year. I've taken a couple of days on certain days, meaning that today I have 11 days left, but since I already have some absences planned, and my balance including planned is 9. So this often takes a lot of questions away. It's very transparent. People can exactly see what happened to the balance, and therefore they don't have to go to the manager or to HR to ask what's going on, why is my balance only 9, or I expected it to be 13, and they can exactly see what happened to it on which day, and that is actually correct. Of course, it's the same for the time off in lieu, where I can see that I don't only have taken some days or hours from my balance, but also get some plus hours based on overtime, for example, that I worked and put in this balance. So again, we will only show balances that are applicable for this employee, and you can choose which one you want to make available for the employee to see. Another option that you can see here is that I can clock in and out. So it is possible to do a digital clocking based on the fact that this employee is allowed to do that. If you would work with hardware, which we also support as clocking devices where people can physically clock in on location, you can also disable this functionality. It will simply not be in the screen. If I click on it, it says you're currently clocked out. I can see the details of the day. I'm supposed to work 2 to 10, but let's say I came in, I'm just going to clock in, and you can see that I can also clock with different reasons. If you activate that, I'm going to clock in, and the system will automatically say, okay, turn green, you're present, and you clocked in at 12:21. Now, where the system really can do and take it a step further and get the employee more aligned and in control of his data is that we can also show tasks. So the solution is completely configurable to, let's say, proactively notify the employee we think something needs your attention, and we can activate those as tasks on his landing page. So here, for example, I can see, we think you might be entitled for overtime. Did you do that, yes or no? And if I click on it, he will show me the details of that day, saying, okay, it was on Tuesday, 2 days ago. I was supposed to work 2 to 10. I actually worked 2 to 11:30. And that means that I have the system registered, maybe you are entitled to have some overtime. Obviously, now it's up to me, or at least I can give the possibility to the employee to say, you know what, I do want that was additional overtime that you asked me to do, dear manager, and I would like to have those hours be paid out or put to my balance. Now, keep in mind that we still have the calculation rules behind it. So it's not because the employee requested it and a manager will grant it, that then automatically those hours will be put on the balance. No, the calculation rules still apply. So if that hours will represent to a time off in lieu balance, it's too high, it can still be paid out because of that rule. But here it's just to me as an employee, I'm in control and I can tell my manager proactively those hours I worked additional the day before yesterday. I would love to have them in my time off in lieu or as to be paid out or whatever your regulation is. But I can also say, no, ignore. I just stayed a little longer. I was chatting with my colleagues, drinking a cup of coffee at the end of the shift, and it was okay. And then we went out late, and that's why I clocked out late. So I can even also notify my manager, you know what, I'm going to add a comment, sorry, that was just late, ignore this. So that means that I can decide what will happen to my hours, or at least let my manager know what I think should happen to these hours. For this, for example, I'm just going to raise the request of having those overtime being paid out. You see, that means that I'm all done with my tasks. Now I only had one task, and this request of the 19th of October was sent automatically to my manager, and either Alex Boss or John November, one of those are both responsible for the same team, if they have to agree with this request. So that means that the employee can really be in control and have more insight in his own data. That's on the Me page. The employee also have the possibility to look to a calendar view. And this calendar view, again, we will only show data that's actually interesting for the employee to see. So I can quickly see on this calendar, for example, today the 21st, I'm supposed to work 2 to 10. I can see after that I have 4 days of non-working days, and on Tuesday the 26th, I'm supposed to start again on the early shift. This is obviously an employee working in a different shift pattern, which is quite fixed, but it could also be a very flexible employee that's scheduled to work, and the employee can actually see, I'm scheduled to work from 6 to 2. Another thing that I am able to see on this calendar are my absences. So I can see on the 6th, I had a training planned. I have 2 holiday days on the 30th and the 31st. So I'm completely aware of the absences that are booked for me. But also I can see, for example, on the 1st, and if I click on the details, I can look at the details of that day. I got night premiums. Now, as I mentioned, this is my demo database, so I have activated the calculation rules that says if you're working between 10 and 6 in the morning, 10 at night, 6 in the morning, I get night premium allowance. So I don't have to do anything. It's granted because based on my calculation rules and the clockings I did, I will get that allowance. And that's a nice thing now about your integration. If you really have an integration with your payroll, that means that I'm assured if it's on this calendar, it will also be represented on my payslip. So this way I know that if it's correct here, it will be paid out correctly as well. And that's also true for those 2 hours that I've got on the 16th. If I click on that one, again, my calculation rules decide if you work additional hours on a Saturday, they will be paid out times 2. And you can see I was supposed to work 6 to 2. I worked 2 hours additional because I worked till 4 o'clock, and actually my overtime was granted, so I will get those 2 hours times 2 on my payslip. Also, from this angle, I will also be notified of the tasks or alerts that are awaiting me. So from an employee perspective, we can also activate the tasks that maybe needs the attention of Paul on the calendar. So you can see, like here on the 14th, I have a little red warning sign. I also have a red warning sign on the 19th. If I would click on that and look at the details, the system will tell me, you've got that overtime detected. And that's actually exactly the same task as I had on the other one. And as you can see, he did give me the warning sign, but I already requested to be paid out from overtime, and it's a pending request. So as long as my manager hasn't treated this request yet, that anomaly is still there. Another one on the 14th, if I look to the details, is that there is a missing clocking. So this is also something that you could give some additional responsibility to the employee to make sure that this data is complete. I mean, if you give full transparency, it means also that they can actually see if something went wrong or something was forgotten, and can give them the possibility to proactively actually suggest a correction. So in this case, if Paul sees, I've got a missing clocking on Tuesday the 14th, that's true, I forgot to clock out. I can actually already tell my manager proactively, you know what, I forgot. And I want to request the clocking. So I want to make that change. So let's say I clocked out at 2, just a normal working day, I just forgot. Maybe I want to add a comment like, sorry, forgot to clock out, and then request this as a corrective action on that day. Now, what you can see on the day detail is that system automatically added clocking, but it's still gray because it's not yet granted by my manager. So behind all those requests, we have different possibilities of building up a workflow. So a workflow could be that it has to go to the team leader. It could also be maybe that it's automatically granted, that it doesn't need to be granted by anybody else, or that it even have a multiple level workflow. So for example, I want to the first request goes to the team leader, but the second is HR for a special leave, for example. Okay. So that's all what I have here on my calendar view. From the calendar view, I can also request other things. I can request an absence, but also, for example, I can request my availability. That's what we see a lot with other companies that work with hourly based employees or students, flex employees. They might not have a fixed pattern like Paul has in this example, but they might want to have really a request or raise the fact that they're available to work on certain days. And that will just be simple. I select the days and I can request a schedule and say I'm available, or maybe actually request availability between certain time zones, depending on how you want to have employees let you know that they are able to work. Now, let's say I want to request an absence, an additional absence. I want to have a week off in November. Let's make that the 5th of November to the 10th. So I could do it from this calendar view. Just select it if you can request an absence and fill the absence request. However, what I also can do, if you want to take another step further, is maybe I know from Paul's point of view that I cannot not take absence if already 1 or 2 other colleagues have a day off. So what we can also provide is just as an additional possibility is that we give a team calendar view. And in that team calendar view, I will see only my direct colleagues. And I want to then see, okay, what is the data I want to present to that employee? In this example, I have very limited functionality activated, so I can only see if somebody is working, that's a white day, non-working, it's gray, or absent. But I don't see necessarily the reason why that person is absent, because that could be sensitive data. Some customers don't like other colleagues to see why a person is absent, because if it's sickness, then it might not be a good idea to show that. But in this case, I want to have a week off in November. And to make my life a little easier, because it's 2 weeks, I'm going to make a 3-week view. And I can make that a little bigger by taking some of the data off. And I want to actually wanted the week of the 6th. So I want to have the week of the 5th to the 10th. That's the week that I wanted to have off. But now I can see that actually Mel is already off on that Wednesday. So I could request this absence anyway, and my manager will see that Mel is already off and probably will decline or refuse my request because we cannot be off at the same time. But because now I can see that Mel is off, maybe I don't mind too much to say, you know what, I'm just going to take until Tuesday and request it instead of until Wednesday. This way, I can have, from an employee perspective, if I want to book a holiday, for example, or I have a wedding card coming in and I want a special leave because it's next week, in a couple of weeks' time, I can at least see who will be working, who's not be working, and will my request will have a chance to be granted by my manager. And this is typically something that a lot of customers of ours use to have a view, especially during the holiday season. I mean, Christmas, you know that everybody wants to have off at the same time, and now they can at least see from each other who's having a week off, who is working, can I take a day off? Maybe I can call Mel and ask her, is it possible for you to take another day because the 10th for me is important? It just helps you to get more aligned and have people have more responsibility and to be a little bit more independent from a manager. Okay, so that's the view for an employee perspective on his or her direct colleagues in a team view. I think that's it from the employee perspective. So I just want to log out and log back in as the manager of Paul Green, because you will see that he has slightly different authorization. But before I do it, you can see here, I've got a logout option, but I also have an option to change language. Now this maybe sounds a little weird, but it's very easy. If you look to our, we support currently 14 languages, but it can really help a user if they can use it in their own native language instead of maybe the English which they don't prefer. So if they want to use Polish or Italian because they are more familiar with that language, they can just change it. Everything will be represented in that language, even though everything I send to my manager will still be in the language that that manager prefers. So it's just a small thing that makes life sometimes much easier for users and makes it more user-friendly. Okay. So I'm gonna log out and log back in. I'm gonna log in with Alex Boss because he's the boss. So it's easy that I remember who the boss is. So you can see a manager has a double role, so to speak. He has a manager, but he's also an employee. So he actually more or less has the same landing page, the me page. He just has more data on it. So first of all, he will show all the requests that are awaiting my treatment. So I have to refuse or decline the requests that are coming towards me. I can do that straight from this screen and say, yep, that's okay, or no, I'm gonna decline it. Approve them both, because I have 2 now, but if I got 5, you can also approve all 5 at the same time. But I can also do that in a different screen, and I'm gonna save that for a little later. Obviously, I'm an employee as well, so I have requests that I've done and also are waiting for approval from my manager. So that double role is just presented on the same view. You see that this manager also has the holiday balance, same, and the time off in lieu, but he has an additional one, which is flexi time. He's not working in a fixed pattern. Now this person is working in much more on and on off based on whatever is needed from him. And if I click on that balance, I can exactly see what happened on a daily basis. Oh, this was minus 23, this is plus 17. So I keep track of my plus and minus balance so that I know what is happening to that. Again, that's just a possibility so that there is no, there's no unclear how that got to 2 hours and 33 minutes. Now you can see it at any given moment, and from your mobile and from your tablet, so it's always clear. Of course, I'm a manager, I've got tasks. I could have tasks from an employee perspective, but I also have tasks from a manager perspective. So I can see there are 4 overtime requests actually awaiting my approval. If I click on it, I can see that requests from the different people. A lot of them are from Paul. It's working really hard, I think. And the request I've done just a couple of seconds ago from the 19th is there as well. So if I click on there, I can see, okay, he did extra time, an hour and a half, on the Tuesday the 19th. It was supposed to work exactly the same data as the employee could see, and he actually requested to be paid out. So I can do a couple of things within here. I can say, yeah, that's fine for me, and I just approve it. I can add a comment. I can change it. If I say, no, I don't agree with it, it will be time off in lieu, or I'm going to even change it to a completely other time off, or sorry, not time off, but I would say time. So like I say, no, I'm going to change that to overtime 1.5 hours, or I'm going to change the 1.5 hours to an hour. As a manager, I'm still in control. But I can also start a conversation. Let's say I doubt whether he actually worked those additional hours because I didn't ask him to do that, but I don't want to refuse it immediately. Then I can actually start a conversation within this request to say, what, can you just let me in? I forgot maybe what happened on Tuesday. And then within the tool and within all the requests, the employee can answer, and there's actually a conversation trail. So again, nothing get lost, and I'm completely aware of what's happening with my request. In this case, I'm just going to be very friendly and I'm approve it. There we go, nothing to add. Now I can see there are only 3 tasks still awaiting my approval. Another thing is that what I could do, of course, I have a calendar, which makes sense, but there is nothing really interesting on it because I'm a flexible employee and there's nothing really what I want to do from here. But what is slightly different for a manager is the team calendar. Because he is a team leader, he will not only see his direct colleagues, he can do that as well, but he will also see his team. So in this case, I've chosen to show a team of the 2 shifts, shifts blue and shifts yellow. And I can see, of course, Paul on that period, but also the other colleagues. And where Paul could only see his direct colleagues from the shift yellow, because he belonged to the shift yellow, I can see the whole group, and I can see the full details of that group. And that's just based on my authorization as a manager. And to make life a little easier, because, yep, I am a manager in this case in my demo database, but there's only a limited group of employees, so it's quite, the overview is quite okay. But you can imagine, of course, that the list is much longer, and then I'm actually looking for certain data. So especially if I'm responsible for a larger team, I might not want to have all my employees on one view because that doesn't give me the information I'm looking for. If I am responsible for 50 employees, I can of course scroll up and down to see everybody, but that's not necessarily the information I want to see. So what we added to this view are the possibilities to filter. So maybe I just want to know who's absent on this week. Whoever is absent. So I can just click on the different kind of absences and I can see, okay, in this week, only Carol has some holiday and Kevin is currently sick. But beside that, everybody's apparently working. I can also have different types of absences, like working at a different office or working elsewhere. And those type of things are available as well as a filtering option. I can also show, because now I've got two teams, but I'm looking at a shift blue and shift yellow, but I just want to know actually the two groups and divide them. You can see here I can group the population, and then I will see my shift blue separate from my shift yellow. Obviously, again, it's my demo database, and it could be very different namings, but I've chosen to use shift colors. But I can also say, no, I'm just going to untick the blue team and just show the yellow team and just show the blue team. So this kind of tick boxes should make life much easier for the manager to look at the data that he or she is actually looking for. To filter like this is a little bit like a web store, I sometimes say. I don't want to see all the clothing. I'm looking for a pair of jeans and I have to be gray and I want this particular size. If I see everything, it's not really a transparent overview and I don't get the information I'm actually looking for. So that's the whole thought about the filtering pane that we have here, is to give the information to the manager in a way that will help him to determine what he's looking for. Another option that I have is, from a manager perspective, is not to have like this week or 3 week view, like an employee could see it as well, but to show a list view. Now, this list view is typically used to get all the notification in one overview. So yes, I had the tasks on my me page notifying me that there are tasks awaiting, but on this list view, I have them as well. So whatever finds the user more comfortable is the angle that he can choose to get in. He will get the same information and the same steps that he can take from every angle. So here I've got an overview of all the things that happened. And then you can see that there are filtering options as well. So I see that I have some absences that were granted or refused. So I can see pending requests, but maybe I just want to know, no, show me first everybody who has an incomplete day. So if I click on the alert, he will filter out the employees that are missing a clocking or didn't come while I expected them to work. There is something that is awaiting my work, so to speak. So what we're trying to do here very much is just management by exception. I don't want to look at everybody at every single time and every single day if they've done what I expected them to do. I only want to do something if there is something that needs my attention. So let's see that I have got Paul here on the 14th, and he has actually a missing clocking. Now, if I zoom into that day, I can see that this person actually has a missing clocking, but there you are. This is the request of that employee for the corrective action. So yes, he has a missing clocking, but he actually already requested to me, oh, sorry, I forgot to clock out. And if I click on that, I can actually see that. So I see that he added that clocking for 2 o'clock on the 14th and actually said, sorry, I forgot. So if I approve that, sorry, silly one, stupid, forgot again. That means that I can have that data there as well. So if I approve it, it will take that alert away. And actually my list is getting a little cleaner because my alert of an incomplete day is fixed. Now, there is a full trace of that. So if you look at data or transparency, this information is also kept in the system. And that means that from a centralized point of view, you can also look at that point. So if there is a lot of these corrective actions, you might see, okay, why is that? Is there a reason for it? Can we maybe see that it is not known by certain users how this works, or maybe we do have to give a little bit more responsibility to the employee that they can do things themselves. Maybe there is a group of users that are not known with the system or anything like that. So you can also, from that angle, look at the data and see what's going on within the workforce. Okay. And obviously, now, as a manager, I can also do things on behalf of the employee. So if the employee has no possibility to, I see here, for example, on the 13th, there is no nothing there. The person did not clock in and out. So there's no absence and there is no presence while I expected him to work, but maybe I know that, and this employee didn't request it, but he actually has an absence on that day. that I can always add the absence on behalf of that employee and say, no, he took a day of holiday, I know he did, and add that to his day so that day is completed as well. So from a management perspective, I can always do work on behalf of the employee. I can do that from this angle, but I can obviously always still do that from this angle, from that team calendar. If somebody is not comfortable working with computers or maybe not entitled to request different shifts, I could do that as well. So let's say I see here that Maria is working tomorrow the early shift, but she actually came to me whether it's possible for her to work the late shift instead, and I'm fine with it, or maybe I ask her to do. I can make that change, of course, and say I'm going to change your schedule from the original early shift to the late shift from 2 to 10. And that way it will be changed in my roster. So Maria is now working late shift, and all the calculation rules apply for that late shift as well. And the employee is notified that her shift changed from the early shift to the late shift. And that's the same if I could use planning options as well. I can say, you're scheduled to work now from this time to that time, just to notify the employee as well. He can see that on his computer, but also so from home or on his way on the mobile phone. And I think that's also very important to get people engaged. They're used to have everything on their 24/7, as mentioned before, and having this on hand all the time means that I'm very comfortable saying, oh, you want to have a meeting tomorrow? Let me see. Oh yeah, that's okay. I start working at 2, so if we can meet up for lunch at 1, that's fine. It's just comfortable to have that data real time and online, and always prepared to get it. Yep, I think that's basically what I was starting to talk about today. I hope it gave you a little insight into the possibilities of a real-time online workforce management tool. Great. Yep. Did we, by any chance, have any questions coming in?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much. Really fantastic insight there from both sides, not just employees, but managers as well. So thank you very much for that. We have got a few questions come in for the last 10 minutes. Before I ask them, there is one more poll just to share. I think I can do that while you're sharing your screen, so I'll just give that a try. Yep, so there you go. The question is, are you looking to adopt/replace an online workforce management solution in the next 12 months? So once that runs, I'll give you 20 seconds again, and then we'll go into the questions that have come in. Okay, it's the last couple of seconds to vote. Okay, thank you. And then quickly share the results. So we've got 67% no, they're not looking to replace, and 33% are looking to replace. So quite interesting results, I think. Perhaps your live demo there was the final thing which pushed them over the edge there, Ellen, to think about swapping. So thank you very much for your votes there, guys. I'll just close that before I go back to the questions. So in the last 10 minutes then, first question that we've seen is, what is the experience with acceptance of this tool by employees? So not managers in this case, just employees.
Yeah, I think workforce management or TNA is sometimes suffering from an old-fashioned image of being a controlling system. Obviously, if you ask people to clock in and clock out, that seems like you're keeping track just how many hours people work. But I hope that today I could show you that with having that insight from an employee perspective also helps them to get control back. They understand what's being orchestrated, but also can have an effect on that by requesting a correction or requesting their overtime or maybe a change in their schedule. So although in the beginning, sometimes the first reaction of an employee could be, oh no, they're going to control when I'm working. It's actually giving that transparency, but give a lot back to the employee. And although the first acceptance levels may be low, I always notice that once it's implemented, employees really, really appreciate the tool and the information they get and the insight in their own data and how intuitive it is. So it's first step might be the acceptance is a little well, taking back and saying, I don't know. But once they get used to it, acceptance is really, really high. Once they see it, how it works, and how it works on their mobile and how intuitive it is, they actually get on board really quickly.
Okay, brilliant. So I guess it's a bit of a challenge on both sides for employees and managers to communicate the point of why they're doing it and how it will help. And it kind of relates to one of the other questions that came in while you were doing that was the benefits of web clocking over physical clocking devices. I guess there's a benefit to both sides as well on that one, not just employees, but to managers as well and the organization as a whole.
Yeah, and it's very, very, again, it's very transparent. You can do it on the spot. You're there if you're working from home. If you have like that, the people are working more and more from home. Of course, you don't have a physical clock there necessarily, but you do want to make known that you are working and can be called and maybe working on certain projects even, so that for your colleagues they can see, she is working at the moment, so I can see that she's there. So it gives some, and you can also give you the let's say flexibility to clock out when you're going out to get your kids from school. And so that work-life balance sometimes talks about by clocking out, you at least also know, currently I'm not working, don't worry, I'll be back, clock back in. So I also know I'm actually working at that moment and my hours are calculated correctly, but my colleagues also know and have transparency of my hours worked.
Okay, it's kind of comes down to that fluid communication streams then. It's not a case of emails and calls. You can do it via the app or via the tool, so nice and easy. Okay, thank you very much. And the final question was quite topical for the moment, is how can Protime help with the return to the office and how that's going to be different, obviously with the impact of COVID and countries being in different positions, organizations having different points of view of how they're going to return, how they're going to do it in the future. So how can Protime help with that transition then?
Well, that's something that we actually implemented ourselves partly, is that when we wanted to, especially during the pandemic, we requested when we wanted to go to the office so that on a higher level they could have a look that not too many people were at the office at the same time. And once that was all done, also by clocking in and out and having that request in place, we are aware of who's been where at what moment. So actually, and then if somebody falls ill and you want to have that track and trace to see how you potentially been in contact with that particular colleague, they can see, okay, I have to notify these 4 people who have been at the same office at the same time to ask them to maybe to run a test and something and things like that. So by and also what I find out myself is that I sometimes check, I really want to see Craig because I have some questions and it would be really helpful if he would be at the office as well. And if I can see that he actually requested to go to the office tomorrow, I might request the same thing so that we can have a meeting real quick. That's actually something that I use it for personally, to understand who will be there and whether it makes sense for me, because I maybe need a couple of people to have a short talk about it. And obviously, if you're going back to it's also nice to see some colleagues again, and sometimes you just want to understand. If there is nobody there, then it doesn't make sense for me to go. But if I see some colleagues are there, I can actually go out as well and know that I have some people to have raise some questions with.
Yeah, it's an easy way of keeping in touch with people who work in different places, not in the office, where you can go and speak to them or walk over and see them. It's just another way of easy communication.
Yeah, it is, and it will help you keep track from a more health issue maybe. It's just that you know who has been at the office at which time and run your reports if somebody falls ill and you want to know who you have to notify.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. There are no other questions that have come through other than those 3. So I think we can finish around 3 minutes early, which is almost perfect timing. So thank you very much to everyone who's joined today, and also to you, Craig and Ellen, for your input. Very much appreciated. Really useful session. And again, for everyone who's listening, attended today, this will be sent round to you as a on-demand recording, so you can listen in whenever you like or share with colleagues, etc. So you'll get that very soon. Okay, well, thank you very much again, guys. Really appreciate it, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.